So good day to everybody. I hope you can hear me well. I would like to welcome you to the second webinar organized by excellent. Thanks a lot, Helmut. So this is the second webinar by BIO2REG regarding the multi-criteria assessment. So I'm Georges Maroulis. I am a postdoc researcher at Pantheon University Institute of Urban Environment and Human Resources, UEHR, just to an acronym, just to spare the long title. So I will begin right away with our first introductory presentation. So I hope you can see my screen. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So let's begin. As I've already told you, this is the first presentation, and just to fill you in, this is a short agenda of what we're going to do today. In our hourly webinar, we will look into a brief introduction to bioeconomy and the multi-criteria assessment. We will start presenting and try to look into deeper the cogs and wheels of our multi-criteria assessment framework. We'll do a short interactive exercise of how to find your indicators within our framework, and then we will end with some validation and feedback and Q&As. So let's see how a BIO2REG project is presented. So the problematic begins with the issue that European regions are at crossroads, especially those that have the challenge of transitioning into a new era of away from fossil fuels. So there we have the challenge that can be summarized in the following four arguments. The first one has to do with the declining coal demand. So based in the EU directives and policies, and the fossil fuels phase out, of course, specific regions that are basically base their economy on that economy are expected or are currently losing jobs, and of course are experiencing regional economic stagnation, along with the environmental degradation all those years with the fossil fuel exploitation. So the need is emerging for a just and sustainable transition. And of course, this includes the diversification away from fossil fuels. There is an urgent need of reskilling workforce. Of course, there is also this pressing need of leveraging existing assets. And finally, and our own proposal is building resilient and circular green economies. So before entering into the core of the MCA, let's see some brief presentation of bioeconomy beginning in the 20s. It was the first time that the term bioeconomy was coined, used further in the 70s in another framework and in another concept. But then in the last years of the 20th century and in the beginning of 21st century, we have the first, so to say, baby steps regarding the deployment and the introduction of bioeconomy to the policy arena. And went up with specific definitions regarding bioeconomy. You have, for example, institutions such as OECD presenting their own application definition. Then the EU Commission as a front runner to that field. Then we also have other institutions such as FAO with a very, very long definition of what bioeconomy could be. And of course, other countries that are trying to introduce their own concept regarding bioeconomy. So you see that there is a plethora of definitions and approaches at the same time regarding bioeconomy. But what we are doing here regarding also our own webinar is, here, sorry about that. So this is also the latest definition offered by EU as of 2025 regarding the definition of bioeconomy, and see how the definition is evolving between organizations, especially on an EU level. So what we're doing here, you will see a very complicated process, but I'm trying to explain it in a few words. So within the BIO2REG project, our first, so to say, task was to look into bioeconomy related indicators. So we made a review process. So it's the upper part. So, and then we found approximately less than 900 bioeconomy related indicators. Then we tried to categorize them into those that we could find regional data, and to others where data were partially available or even not available, and then subgrouped into other indicators. Then those indicators were brought into the so-called policy arena, where we received feedback regarding their quality and how well they could measure bioeconomy. We collaborated with experts within regional network events, and then we ended up with the indicators of Annex 1 of our practical guide, where you can find in our BIO2REG website. So, and we formulated specific indicators, number of indicators according to scenario that are going to be explained later. So here is more or less a brief overview of our deliverable. I'm going to explain it in more detail. Here is where you could find our deliverable if you have already done so. So, and our main feature is basically the scenarios and the indicators included in there. So, but before that, what we have already done is to do an assessment based on the existing indicators with available data on the NATS2 level in Europe. And here you can see just some aspects of our research. Here, for example, you can see how regions are performing regarding the sector of fishing and aquaculture sector. And you can see all regions of the EU 27 plus Iceland, without undermining, of course, because you see that Iceland is performing very well regarding this sector, along with other EU regions, such as Galicia, Brittany, and Andalusia. The same or similar performance can be also seen in another sector, such as bio-based chemicals. Here you will see that we have other best performers. So according to the sector, one can say that you have different performance and different approaches. And this is something that we try also to take into account in our own research. And our own research can be seen here. Just a moment. Excellent. This is a direct reference to our second presentation regarding the MCA framework. You will see here just the agenda. We will look deeper and see the structure of the multi-criteria assessment according to our deliverable 1.3. And we will do a small experiment. So we'll provide you the static snapshot once more, and then we will look into the dynamic picture and how things should be done in practice. And of course, some preliminary conclusions and for us, the way forward. Once again, our deliverable. And of course, our deliverable in our practical guide is basically divided into 4 steps. So one region, if it wants to implement our multi-criteria assessment, should have to answer those 4 preliminary questions. If the country has a national bioeconomy strategy, if yes, it's okay. If no, we'll see. If your region, you want to implement the MCA assessment as a regional bioeconomy strategy, then which are your region's special sectoral specializations, especially if you want a regional or national bioeconomy strategy. These are easily found and identified. However, if you don't have, you have to use your own expertise so as to identify them. And of course, the final question is what kind of bioeconomy you envisage for your region. Once you want to answer that question, you will end up with our 3 main scenarios. The 3 main scenarios are the waking soft, which is basically suited for regions that are trying to make their first steps towards bioeconomy. Then we have a moderate scenario where we include the indicators of the wake soft scenario plus some more elaborated ones. And the final one is a strong and dedicated scenario where you builds up upon weak and soft and moderate and medium plus further elaborated regions in order to assess the performance regarding bioeconomy. And this is, of course, a comprehensive framework that you have to implement it, execute it, and have a clear monitoring process in order to find a way by adapting it, improving it, see whether those indicators are available at first, whether they can be assessed, and then if they are suited for our cause. Here you will see the examples on the left side, how it can go linearly. And of course, on the right-hand side, you will see how this can also go vertically by doing very specific steps, by putting some milestones, and very, very importantly, to include feedback and reevaluation of this whole exercise, because it's basically something like a learning by doing exercise that needs feedback from different stakeholders and expertise. The snapshot is basically what I have already provided you here. So it is basically what we have already done. Static, because what we did, we included all the regions, and we based our analysis into the latest available data. It could be 2023 or sometimes 2020 data. And then we looked into 2 different scenarios by looking into specific decision-making tool. Named TOPSIS. And then we also assigned weights to its indicator, equal weights in our base scenario, and by using another weighting method called Shannon entropy on that. And then we ended up, of course, with sometimes similar data, but this is also the case that we also found some modified data in other aspects. However, I think this was the case where we saw that at least at the theoretical level, our theoretical analysis has come to an end, at least for the practical deployment of bioeconomy. So then we wanted to look at the dynamic picture, and then we wanted to devise a more so to say dynamic aspect into that framework. So we suggested to look into time series data. So not only into the latest available indicators, but look into the time series, how a specific indicator is evolving throughout a specific time period, be 10 years, be 15 years. And then it will be more obvious to look into identify specific trends. It could be upward trends, downward trends, or stable trends, for example. One can say, for example, you have the employment of how it goes. It goes upwards or downwards when you have high unemployment. And this is also a sign of where you're standing and how you are evolving. So this is exactly what the trend is. And also shows you directions for the future, especially if you have fluctuations regarding the development of that indicator. This is also important in order to see how this evolves and look and make directions to the future and include and adapt and improve, so to say, concept in order to modify it, look into it, and see how well region, your case, should evolve. So for that reason, we have created a real case example. So a so-called rapid case study, it is the region of central Greece. So without knowing it, here you have some key aspects of the main questions that should be answered. So first of all, Greece, at least for now, doesn't have an established national economy strategy. The region itself doesn't have a regional bioeconomy strategy. So you have those black marks. We know that mainly and based on our research, the region is mainly agricultural. So the end result is that we will want to include the soft scenario to that case. As I've already told you, the scenario includes 24 indicators. So those indicators are basically too much in order to look into them during our presentation, and might be also a little bit boring. So we try to make it more practicable and look into specific indicators and how these have evolved. Of course, my colleague Panagiotis is going to explain to you how these could be found in a more practical aspect. So let's see the first one. So I think one of the most, so to say, important ones in all scenarios, and especially in that scenario, even in the sub scenario, is to see the value added in bioeconomy services. So here you will see how the Excel table is look like. So we have the pillar, which is economy. We also have two other pillars so as to reflect the sustainability aspect in bioeconomy. So we also have environment and social pillars. The sector. So here it is applied to all sectors, but here you will also see some a differentiation. The metric is in euros. We know the source, so and we also provide a comment so as to ease your research regarding the bioeconomy, your bioeconomy assessment. So the results regarding the region of central Greece are those. So here, for example, you could see in the middle the added value, how it has been evolved through the time series between 2008 and 2020, where we have all available data. Upwards, you will also see added the employment and the turnover. So just as I've told you, as an iterative process, that those can also be found in the same database. So the main lesson here you will see is that we begin at a very high, so to say, stage, and then during the time of the economic crisis in Greece, we see some fluctuations, some upward trends, and then some downward trends. But as of 2020, there is a certain stability, at least in the added value. Of course, a small or a downward trend towards employment, and the same as added value can be said about turnover. However, as I've already told you, we know that the region has regional specialization in agriculture. So for us, it was also good to look into the sector itself, the agriculture. Here you will see another picture, more or less, especially in the added value. Here you can see a more certain stability, but with at least an upward trend. Of course, the same as in the total sectors can be said about the employment. So we have a slight downward trend, and the same as added value goes with turnover. So here's just to show the plus and the minuses. So we have minus for employment, the added value is positive, and the turnover seems stable. The next indicator, also into the economy pillar, applied to all sectors, is the employment rate. So especially the employment rate as a metric, as a percentage. Employment rate divided by the total active population, so between 15 and 64, at least for now. Once again, we have regional data available now through Eurostat. And here you can just see how this has evolved throughout the period of 2012 and 2024, where we have the latest available data. So as I've already told you, here you have the burden, so to say, to look into data that have specific time frames regarding their availability. At least for us, it was a very challenging task. However, if one wants to implement it at a regional level, we believe that this exercise could be easier, at least to a certain extent. And this is why we also want to learn. So here, for example, that employment rate, you see that it's fairly stable. However, we have a slight upwards projections up to the latest level. Then, leaving economy aside, we'll look into two specific indicators regarding the environment. Here you will see, for example, that we go away from all sectors and we focus and delve into specific ones, such as the agriculture and forestry. So here we look into the land cover as a metric. So here you will see it could be also as a percentage, but also as square kilometers. Once again, for both indicators, we have available data at the Eurostat level. Here are the results for the region of Central Greece. On the one hand, you see, for example, cropland, that in square meter it is evolving, and also as a share, but this is basically in order to show how different you can also put the metric regarding the assessment. So having a minimum at 2025, then you see that there is an increase until 2022, where the available data are stopping. And on the other hand, you can also see how the term, so forestry in terms of woodland is decreasing from 2018 to 2022, for example, but also staying a little bit at an elevated level in contrast with the previous years. Another another indicator is that of economy. So here we will look into the gross fixed capital formation in relation to GDP. The metric is in euros. Once again, Eurostat is providing us with data. And here you will see a clear upward trend from 2019 to 2022. A clear sign that there is at least public and private funding included introduced in the area. And the pillar, the last indicator can be included in the economy pillar, but also in the social pillar. So it is basically the population at risk of poverty rate. And here you will see, for example, in our case study, that we have another pattern. As of 2020, the risk of poverty rate is increasing, and then we see that as of 2023, this ratio is decreasing. However, it's trying to gain an upward trend, something that is of concern for that region. So by showing those just indicative indicators out of the first scenario, we made a preliminary analysis, but showing that we have good signs, for example, in the economy sector. We also have some stability regarding the bioeconomy itself. Also, employment is good. However, of concern could be, for example, the population at risk of poverty. So in any case, this is a very indicative, a very general one. So we didn't want to look into further indicators, but it's basically just to show you how this is evolving. And also for us, it's of great use as our next step to implement it on a practical level with regions in order to see how this can be improved, can be adapted to its specific case, and especially for each region and its specialization. It is for us a co-creation exercise because we just provide a theoretical framework that we have applied it on an EU level, but we want to do it to see how this can be involved in practice. And it is really a learning by doing exercise. And of course, our great aspiration is to create throughout its implementation a benchmarking in order to look into potential champions, those who are at the middle level, and those who need further push regarding the the deployment and further promotion of bioeconomy in the European Union. So, and with that, I'm leaving you, and I give floor to my colleague Panayotis, where he's also going to show you how you can find in practice those indicators I have mentioned in our in my presentation.
Hello to everyone, and thank you for your participation. I will share the screen. So, can you see my screen? Is the presentation okay?
Yep.
Okay. So, I'm Panagiotis Koroneos, and I am a PhD candidate in environmental economics and an EU Bioeconomy Youth Ambassador. Today, I will try to explain you in a practical way how you can use our MCA tool in your regions based on the data that we have available and assess these different scenarios based on your preferences and show you some examples of indicators. So if you just search BIO2REG, you will find the project homepage, and in the results section, you're able to download this Excel file, which is actually the scenarios that was mentioned before by George, and you can select, for example, the soft scenario. Let's see an example of an economic related indicator. As you can see here, we have the type of indicator, if the indicator belongs to the society group, economy, or the environment group. You can see here the sectors that are related with this indicator, uh, the way we measure it, and the most important, the source. So if we go to, for example, value added and click in this link, we will have access in this page. So you can choose the regional profile and then select the county, for example, region and the region. And based on the sector that we read, you can see results about value added of bioeconomy in this sector in this region and results about employment. For example, here we can select all of bioeconomy related sectors. And as you can see, there's the value added, and here you can see the persons employed in this specific sector. Also, you can just uh, click only for one specific sector, for example, agriculture. If you have a specialization in your region, for example, in agriculture, and you want to investigate how bioeconomy is the status of bioeconomy in the specific sector in your region. Let's see another example of environmental indicators. Change is forest area, so we will redirect it in the Eurostat page. This is more time. This is probably problem with the network. We can search for another kind of indicator. Let's go to the society group, gender employment gap. We have access. So regarding the previous indicator, as you can see, the name of the indicator was change in forest area, but here, as you can see, it is written land cover. So you can search for different kind of land covers. In our case, we will search for the forestry status. Perfect. Okay, let's skip that. Let's go to the gender employment gap. As you can see here, we have the geopolitical entity. You can unselect all the choices and choose a specific region. And here is the time reference. So you can see this indicator throughout time. And here we have the data. You can choose the format that you prefer, or you can visualize in map and also download the data. We should also mention that based on the scenario that you choose, the soft, medium, and strong, there is sometimes indicators here on front that we didn't have data availability for all of the regions, but probably if it's the case, we can go to the regional authorities and find more related data regarding the specific indicators. So now, based on the tool that and the way that you're able to find the data, please take your time and try an indicator of your choice in order to see your potential based on your region.
Yes. I think, yeah, something is raised. So I don't know if just, because we have done it so many times. There's basically one of the issues that, of course, you will see just a moment to look into my here, for example. Let me also show you my screen here. For example, you will really see the source that we have found out where regional data were available. So of course, just by clicking here, for example, and okay, you can also look into the here, for example, if you go, it needs some time, of course, just to look into the specific overview of specific indicators. So here you begin from here and then you go here. Of course, according and depending on the region, this will take time. So I'm sorry for switching to screens. So here you will see our primary source of information. Of course, if a region is really interested in implementing the MCA, of course, they will, let's say, scrap that source and use their own data. And I think sometimes this is more preferable if you think you have more robust data in contrast with those provided by the national statistical authorities or whoever reports to the Eurostat. For that region, this is why for specific, so to say, indicators, we couldn't provide any specific primary source, at least for information. And this is where the practical experience of the regions comes into play. Here, this is where, especially if you go into other scenarios, such as the medium scenario, if you go a little bit downwards, you will see that here, for example, you have um, indicators such as import of agricultural biomass or forestry biomass production, where we couldn't find it, or we can at least find it in specific European regions. Here, especially, this is why we opted for, in the soft scenario, to go with those who have at least at the first glance available data. And if you go deeper into the medium or strong scenarios, we included indicators where at least for our research, we couldn't find a primary source of information, but based on your experience in the region, you might have sources of information where such a number can be depicted and find out how this has been involved. So this is also one of our needs, also doing the first theoretical assessment, was the need, first of all, of data availability, and of course, on the other hand, data harmonization. The first one could be easy. The second one is, of course, a big topic of discussion of how data are harmonized, because there you have to look into the interdisciplinarity. So we come from example from the regional economy perspective, so we want some robust data. But however, you have other professions where they come into play, for example, engineers or biologists or everyone else, where, for example, say what kind of forest biomass you're looking for, or what kind of biomass you want, which characteristics might be relevant. So in any case, this is something that is evolving and needs further, of course, discussion at an EU level on the one hand, and on the other hand, of course, at the regional level. And this is why we say that this framework can be also adapted to its specific case and improved once it's executed and it's monitored. This is also our the rationale behind doing such a webinar on the one hand, and of course we will be thrilled to look into your into your comments. So here, okay, so I think this is more or less a very general explanation of how the multi-criteria assessment framework works. And now you will come into play by providing us some feedback or initial comments regarding our own webinar and what we have presented. So let me share with you, hopefully for the last time, my screen. So this is a Mentimeter. I hope you can see it. Please at first scan scan the QR code if where it is below. Okay. Okay. We can wait a bit. Mhm. Yeah, I think you have already. Mm-hmm. This is something interesting because also shows also something specific because we have biomass, but also we have biomass. So this is also interesting, showing something regional, something specialized. Okay, just one more. I can see any other answer. Okay, somebody has show. You can also see that almost a spine in view. So good. So we have profit. This is interesting. Sustainable transition, circularity, innovation. Mhm. This is excellent. So I think we already all provided a question. I just the spoiler, the further questions won't be so difficult, so to say. So one very general question: if your country has a national bioeconomy strategy, okay, okay, okay. So 1/3 has a national bioeconomy strategy. And if your region has a regional bioeconomy strategy, yeah, that thing. Okay, okay. Whoa, whoa. As you can see, I'm also following the questions provided in the practical guide, so step by step. But yeah, this is also something like a preliminary. Yeah, and this is something that needs to be improved, of course. If none of the participants has a regional bioeconomy strategy. So here is which are, according to your expertise, your region, sector, or specialization. Here you will see specific sectors of bioeconomy. You can also put more than one answer. Mhm. Okay. See here a strong focus on agriculture, then on forestry, so basically on primary sectors regarding bioeconomy, but it's also of interest. But then you have a differentiation in the secondary, so to say, sectors, so more industrial oriented ones with bio-based textiles and chemicals. Also wood products, also interesting. Okay. All right. So, what kind of bioeconomy transition you envisage for your region? What would you suggest? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is interesting. So we have, or okay. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Lovely. Okay, here, so we have people who have already done some steps, so they believe they can do it better. It's a good sign. So now, uh, a question regarding our own, so to say, presentation. What's your impression from the webinar itself and the framework we have developed? How do you find it? Okay. Good. Okay. Thanks a lot for that. This is something that would be taken into consideration. So select the argument that applies to your case. So there you can choose one of the three. So something positive, something that needs time, and of course a neutral, for us at least, is a negative one. Right? Okay. Good. Good that we have at least provided some of the essential of the MCA framework. And how I'm really glad you have identified. You have understood that. We really appreciate that. So now a very more detailed personal question. So which aspects of the MCA framework should be upgraded? What do you believe? Which should be? We have selected some. Uh-huh. Okay. Hmm. At least for us are the four main fronts, although the best practices aspect has already been covered within the BIO2REG framework. So yeah, basically for us is how to put those best practices into the framework of the MCA assessment, at least for our case. So okay, yeah, we know we really understand the need of creating a benchmarking. So we've seen also other tools that have evolved, and we know that within the Byte2Rec exchange instrument and the Byte2Rec, all the other tools Byte2Rec offers. This is for us a unique opportunity of collaborating with regions and looking into more detail and try to find that, so to say, a benchmarking method that could be used in order to be more specific and see how things are going, if they're going well or if they're going, of course, not so well and need improvement. This is also for us very important. So, mm, and this also comes to our next questions regarding which aspects of the HEMCA frame should be a frame. If you have other um, suggestions here. Mm-hmm. Okay. always in our mind that really, it's always in our mind. Okay, so we can also, oh, yep, yep. This could be an excellent option. Don't know if this is possible within now the BIO2REG framework, but at least this is an opportunity of looking into something more user friendly. We try to make it user friendly as possible, but yeah, might be needed. Yep. 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 Weighting of indicators. We have already provided, if you look into, you can look because it's basically not available. We have done such a weighting regarding the different indicators. You can find it if you look into our if you go into the BIO2REG website and look into our news, you will see that we have made some publications, some scientific publication in open access journals where you can find what you need, the weighting of indicators, how we did it. So in a nutshell, we have provided, for example, I can show you from the EU region perspective, we have done two scenarios. The first scenario was an equal weight scenario. So we say that each weight is ascribed the same weight. And the second one scenario was based on procedure called Shannon entropy. So we put the data there and we had an algorithm, a code that has provided us with the weights based on the source of information it was shown. Okay, so what challenges do you foresee in implementing the MCA regionally? This is also something that could be seen as a question. Yep, political acceptance. This is interesting. Yep. This is also something that, okay. Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. This is interesting that political acceptance comes out of comes out as so to say risk factor, taking into account that the regional governments, especially in the current EU regional landscape, can be diverted into different, so to say, extreme directions where there is a negativity towards anything that promises something new or something that is adjusted to the EU principles. It's very difficult to say. This is, yeah. Although, yeah, we also have the stakeholder coordination seems okay. Technical expertise has received, yeah. And just to, so if you want to implement the MCA, how we can support you? This is something that would be of interest to us. Yep. Okay. This can be managed if you wish. So, okay. Okay. I've seen there is an inclination towards one-on-one. So at least not in person, but at least via such streams as interactive streams. Of course, we'll be glad to see whether it is possible to go into different regions. But yeah, okay. Oh, okay. Okay, there seems to be um, no further response here. So of course, we didn't have no other, so of course, here was basically it. There was an answer called other, so yeah. Okay, I think this is how we okay. So I don't know if you have any further questions that want to answer regarding our MCA framework. So at least for us, this was a unique opportunity to present to you a framework, how this is done. And of course, we will be happy to push this discussion further by implemented on a regional level. So I don't know if there are any further questions you want to answer, some comments, anything possible. Think, yeah. Okay, I see no questions. Oh,
Well, thank you so much for this presentation. And I wrote in the chat, I will try this tool, and I think it's very helpful. And I will come back to you if I have any questions or feedback.
Yep.
Thank you.
I will be very happy to do so. Very happy to do so, Helmut. Many thanks for that. Really happy for that feedback, and of course for any further need for cooperation if needed. So I think this concludes our webinar. I hope you find it interesting. Of course, within the BIO2REG website, we are also at your disposal for further questions, for feedbacks, comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter and look into the services we provide to EU regions. We will be very glad to look into them and see whether it fits something to your purpose. And at least our common purpose is to do the deployment and the further promotion of bioeconomy on a regional level, something that we envisage within our project through the bioeconomy model regions. So I think this concludes our webinar. I would like to thank you all for your attendance, and I'd like to wish you a nice day. So many thanks, and yeah, we will stay in touch. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.